Today, we need to talk about the F word. And no, I'm not talking about that one. So get your mind out the gutter. This is a whole establishment or a whole podcast most of the time. But I'm talking about fibroids. So if you are here, I'm so glad again. July is Uterine Fibroid Awareness Month. And up to 80% of women will develop fibroids by the age of 50. By the age of 50. That's crazy. And most of us are suffering in silence, just as I was. So today we're saying the F word loudly. Welcome back. This is She Unrestricted, and I'm so glad that you have joined. If you are listening today, I'm so glad that you're here. If this is your first time, welcome. If not, you already know what it is. We are all about strength, meeting healing, and where elevation begins. And we talk about all things with no restrictions, and we live life with no restrictions. I don't know when you heard about fibroids, but I know when I heard about fibroids. That is an F word that no one has warned us about, that rings throughout specifically Black women, but women as a population. This is the one that sometimes doesn't get whispered about or said at the brunch, at your girls' brunch, or even during family events or any event for that matter. And apparently, it doesn't come up much at the doctor's office either. Here's my truth. I used to set an alarm at work, not to go to a meeting, not to get on a call, not to schedule time with someone, but to change my tampon or my pad so I wouldn't bleed through. And when I noticed this, I was working in customer service. And if you know anything about customer service, you cannot just get up off the phone and be like, "Excuse me, Mr. Customer, boop, I need to place you on hold because I go to the restroom." Even though I know some of my people, we did that before. At the time, I thought it was normal, but deep down inside, I also knew something was wrong. I thought the anemia was a part of my DNA. I thought black I thought blood transfusions was something that I needed to get because that's just what I needed to do. I didn't even do any research. At the time, I was a little bit younger when I found out about them. A lot of people, doctors specifically, and other people were like, "Oh, it's just genetics." Well, sis, that's not genetics. It's the F word. It's fibroids. That is not normal activity. That's paranormal activity. That is not activity that your body should be going through, that any woman should have to go through. And it took me over a decade, 4 procedures, 4 pregnancies, and 2 trips, maybe even more, to the ER to really say the word fibroids. That word took over my life for more than I can imagine. For over a decade, it has consumed my life. And today, we're going to expose it. Today, we're going to uncover it. Today, we're going to talk about it with no restrictions. Now, today, I'm not here to give you medical advice. I'm not here to claim something that's not. I am simply here today to tell my story, my testimony, and to give you permission to say what we often don't say out loud, to feel however we need to feel when people tell us, "Hey, you don't need to feel that way. It's okay. It's just genetics." No, we talked about this in a previous episode. Your body talks to you. Do not downplay what your body feels. It is okay. And here we have no restrictions. So feel how you want to feel, say what you want to say, and carry nothing. So I want to just really take you back. I talked about in a previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, how I experienced a miscarriage, my grief behind that, the process, etc. And I'm not here to talk about that today, but I am here to talk about the F word, which is fibroids. Fibroids, like I said before, has taken over my life in a way that I couldn't even imagine. And I honestly didn't learn about it until I had fibroids. But first, I want to talk about the symptoms. The symptoms that I ignored, I suppressed, and I didn't address that led me to having fibroids for over 13 plus years. So I'll take you back. So go on a journey with me. I'm 20 in my early 20s and I experienced migraines. Migraines no one could explain, no one really ever heard of. I would take Excedrin, migraine medicine, and I would throw up after, but I would feel better. I would also feel a lot of heavy cramping, tightness in my lower abdomen, and just heavy periods, so unexplainable. And for as long as I can remember, I was anemic. I suffer from anemia, low iron, low ferritin. All my numbers were constantly low, so I was constantly on iron medicine, just iron pills. It wasn't even a diagnosis. It was just you have low iron. We don't know the reason. You just have low iron. And so I was walking around taking iron pills because that's what the doctor said. And I didn't know until I had that miscarriage that I had fibroids. I didn't know how many, I didn't know how big. All I knew was, you a liar till you do right by me. And I was just like, I'm going to have this baby. And did, but not without complications. And so, as I was explaining, I would suffer for 3 or 4 days with heavy bleeding. I would have to go super plus pads. And at that time, I was like, man, I'm tired of wearing these pads. I feel like I got a diaper on. I'm going to go to tampons. And so I refused to wear pads, but I had to wear a pad because the tampon would go through in an hour. So the pad would actually give me buffer. So I wore a tampon, super, and then I wore a pad, super. Felt like a diaper, but I was like, you know what? This is what I got to do. This is my life. I'm just going to make it my thing. And so it was my thing. I wore a super tampon, and to give me extra coverage, I had on a pad. And that way, by hour one, if I leak through the tampon, don't worry, I had a pad to catch it. That gave me at least 2 hours. I would set a timer on my phone for 2 hours. And once that timer was up, I was like, I gotta go. Whatever I was doing, customer on hold, maybe I might have hung up on him. I don't know. But I was like, I gotta go. I am not going to be embarrassed with blood stains on the back of my pants for a customer. That was my life. And I suffered through that for many years. I think I worked in a call center for over 5 years, and that was my life. And I held on to that it's just genetics, and this is how my life is going to be. I believed that in my head, and I believed that it was normal. When I was talking to some coworkers around, this process of your period being heavy and things like that. There were some that actually was like, yeah, mine's heavy too. I gotta wear some Depends and this, that, and the other. And so I was like, okay, this is completely normal. Whatever I'm going through is just normal. In a sense, I find it ironic because my body was sending me grievance notices. And every notice I was stamping, resolved, resolved. Okay. Extra pad, resolved. Okay. XO tampon, resolved. Super plus, resolved. And my body was continuously sending me signals. And we talked about this in a previous episode. And there was not one doctor that said, let's get to the root cause of why you're losing so much blood. Let's get to the root cause of why you're anemic. No one doctor ever said that. Um, and I do want to emphasize that fibroids are more common in the African American community than it is in any other community. I'm not saying that there's no other women or no other women population that suffers, but it is predominantly known in the African American community. And so I was literally living as a whole HR professional at this time, moving from customer service into HR, ignoring my own body's HR complaints. And I was thinking, like, how ironic is that? I mean, this is what we do. Let's be honest. This is what we do. But, that was the first time that I ever heard the word fibroids. And I was like, oh, it's non-cancerous. So, for those that do not know, if you're listening, I want to break it down for you. So, a fibroid is a non-cancerous, typically non-cancerous, benign tumor that inhabits the uterus. Sometimes it can affect the ovaries or be near the ovaries or on the ovaries, the cervix. Um, and it could inhabit your uterus and make your uterus bigger than what it truly is. So fast forward to after the miscarriage, I ended up having another kid, a successful pregnancy, but not without trials or complications. So again, I get pregnant after the doctor says you won't be able to carry a baby full term. And if anybody knows me, I'm like, you said I can't? Watch me. I did, um, but not without complications. So I was high risk because I had these fibroids and I didn't know how big they were. No one told me. But I found out that I was having preterm labor around 5 or 6 months pregnant. And so, because I was doing a lot like I always do, and if you know me, you know I am always on the go. Not by choice, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But God was like, you're not going to slow down. I'm going to make you an appointment so you can slow down. And so I clearly remember my husband and I, we were going to San Diego. We're always traveling, but we were going to San Diego. And I was like, okay, let's go to the doctor's appointment. Everything will be fine. We booked a hotel and everything. And the doctor was like, yeah, we're going to keep you. I was like, um, we have like a whole trip planned. Um, we got a hotel booked and this baby is still baking. And they were like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're on bed rest for 3 months. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. This is what has to happen. And so these fibroids literally took 3 months of my life and put them in a hospital bed. And then it wasn't until after my last month of pregnancy that they were like, okay, you can go home and be on bed rest, but don't move. So I was like, okay. Well, finally had the baby, no problems. He's 14 now. Clearly no problems. But the fibroids didn't stop there. There were fibroids when I was pregnant. You can see them bulging out of my stomach. And they were like, "Oh, that's the baby's feet." Funny. No, it's baby fibroid. And it protruded so much that we even named it. I forget the name, but we named it. After I had my first kid, I decided I'm not doing this anymore. I did some research and I ended up getting a uterine fibroid embolization. And what they do in that process of the uterine fibroid embolization is they go in, they pretty much cut a hole, and it's literally the size of your pinky. You can't even see it. And they cut off the blood flow to one of the arteries that is feeding blood to the fibroids. The one way that these fibroids actually live and survive is through the blood flow that they're getting. The more blood they get, the bigger they could potentially be. Not only that, the more blood that they get, the more alive they are. It's like they don't die, they multiply. And they could multiply. That's the procedure I got. And after I got that procedure, I didn't suffer from fibroids. The fibroids actually calcified and I ended up passing one and I was no longer anemic. So we decided to get pregnant with my daughter. That pregnancy was amazing. After I had my daughter, or after I had that procedure, periods were good, light, no problem. I was living on cloud nine. Libido was up, energy was up, everything was up. And I had my daughter, no problem. Had her, had to walk her out because she did not want to come out. We're on my first kid. I was on bed rest and he wanted to come out. So she was good. And I was like, okay, good. We're good. We got two kids. We are phenomenal, boy and girl. We're good. So I was like, let me get on birth control because nobody has time for that. So I ended up getting on the NuvaRing. And I love the NuvaRing. There was no, I didn't feel any different. It didn't change my mood. Um, it didn't do anything for me. At that time, I was like, I could take it out if I need to. If I'm traveling, leave it in for a little bit and then, take it out so I don't have to experience my period. Had a little bit control. Well, little did I know that that has progesterone, and the progesterone is a hormone. And whether you're getting hormones indirectly or not naturally, they can mess with your body's um, physiology, right? So, how your hormones are naturally produced. And so, after maybe a few years, 6 years to be exact, we were like, you know what? Let's have another kid. And so we were trying, and I took out the new ring, and my period it was still good. Well, then one day, all of a sudden, I started experiencing these heavy cramps. I was bleeding a lot, and then I had deja vu. And I was like, why is my period so heavy? I didn't even think about the fibroids. I was more fatigued, got my panels done. I was now anemic. And I was like, wait, my numbers were good. Let me just pop some iron pills. Maybe, you know, I don't know, something happened. And what could I do? So I didn't really think much about it. So we ended up getting pregnant. It took us a while, but in my eyes, it took us a while. But we ended up getting pregnant and we had our youngest. But throughout that pregnancy, I think about 5 months, the doctor tells me, you have fibroids. Did you know that? And I want to be like, of course I didn't know that because they were supposed to be gone. They're supposed to be calcified and gone. They're not supposed to be here. This pregnancy is supposed to be like my last pregnancy. And so they were like, yeah, they're they're a nice size. I'm like, what? So I was like, here we go. So I had deja vu. It took me back and I'm like, man, what's going on? At the same exact time, maybe a couple weeks later, they were like, your blood pressure is not coming down. Let's put you on medication. Not only that, they're like, oh, now they think 34, you're geriatric. Like you have a geriatric pregnancy. I'm like, you make me feel like I'm a senior citizen. So they're like, now you're high risk. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So I go in like a couple of days before my birthday. My baby was due November 3rd. A couple of days on my birthday. My birthday's in October. And I'm getting ready to celebrate my birthday for the weekend. Have no particular plans because it's COVID. No particular plans, but I'm like, hey, I'll go to my appointment. After this, I'm off work. So I go into my appointment, they do the scan, and they say, you know what? We're going to have to keep you. I'm like, again? I said, no, 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 no. This is crazy. They told me your baby isn't growing because of the fibroids. We have to keep you and we're going to induce you. So not only can I not carry my baby full term, I'm probably at 35-ish weeks because that's when I have my appointment and I turned 36 weeks in the hospital. That I think like the next day. So I'm like, these fibroids and did it again. Again, my stomach is protruding. Now I can see the fibroids. I can feel them moving when the baby is moving. It was crazy. So I have uh, I have my baby, but I had a C-section because my blood pressure was going up. There's a lot of mechanics that these fibroids, that the F word did to my body. So I go on and I have a C-section. No one was there with me. My husband wasn't there because it was an emergency C-section. The baby's heart rate kept dropping. My blood pressure kept spiking. They gave me magnesium. I was screaming. My arm was so cold and it was burning. And they were like, okay, this is enough. They took me in. I remember at 6 o'clock in the morning, my alarm was going off because my phone was on there. And they gave me a full, complete C section. And it wasn't even the C section that traumatized me. It wasn't. It was the fact that I still had these fibroids in my body after I gave birth. My stomach looked like I was still pregnant, and people would ask me, are you pregnant? And I would be like, no, I just had my baby 5 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago. And so it's not a fun thing, right? So after I had my kid, my last kid, my period went back and it was worse. It came back with a vengeance. I literally would be in the bed for the first 3 days, hungover, medicated, putting on ice packs. I tried everything, heating pads. I tried the castor oil packs. I tried detoxing. I tried stress relieving. I've been a vegetarian since my daughter was born and she was 11. So I'm like de stressing, all of these things, and nothing worked. Finally, I go see a specialist, the same one that did my UFE before, and I get a UFE again. This time they went in on the other side, closed up the artery. Well, they said it takes about 3 or so months for you to see a difference. I never saw a difference. Month 3, month 6, month 8. Mind you, I'm still on high blood pressure medication. Every time at this point I have my period, I'm super tired. I have low iron, low ferritin. My vitamin D is great. Everything else is great. I have a low libido. I don't have energy for my kids. I have energy for nothing. I'm literally in the bed. I can't fix dinner. I can't do anything because I'm beat. And I did absolutely nothing but lay in the bed. My mom was here. She was like, I don't know what's going on. You need to see somebody else. This is crazy. The last two periods that I had, I was hungover. I had to go to the ER because the pain was so excruciating. My blood pressure was 170 over 104. And I remember that day I was like, I don't want to die like this. I don't want to die, period. So I went to the ER. They gave me muscle relaxers. They said there was nothing that they could do. Nothing. Imagine feeling like that. I couldn't even lose weight. I suffer from an umbilical hernia, a torn umbilical hernia from my first pregnancy. And I suffered with that all the way until about 2022. And I ended up getting a surgery for umbilical hernia repair. So imagine me going through my second UFE and I still feel the way that I feel, but worse. And I was like, this is supposed to work like it did last time. It did not. It didn't. Just imagine this woman's issue, this F word, put me on cardiac medication. I mean, I was less than 40 years old on cardiac medication. During that time, the doctor gave me tranexamic acid, and that is supposed to be for people who are and they need to reduce their bleeding. That's what I was put on. But you know what? I told him to give it to me because I couldn't bleed out. This was a lot. My iron level at one point was a 3. And I don't know if you know anything about iron. Your levels are supposed to be 15 or higher. I had to get an iron transfusion, not only an iron transfusion, but a blood transfusion. That's what this F word did to me. And I was tired of suffering. So, with this, I mean, there was so much loss of a baby, I was on bed rest for multiple months, 2 UFEs, had the NuvaRing. My last baby was in the NICU for being born too early and not growing. The umbilical hernia, the medication. I did the holistic approach, being in the ER, the bills that cost. So all of that, I made I made a decision. I made a decision that I was tired of suffering. And some of you who may be watching or listening to this may be at a crossroads. Maybe you're not. I talked to a young lady yesterday who had a myomectomy. I looked at that and I said, if I could just get a myomectomy, never had one, but I considered it. I said, whatever it takes, I'll go under, I'll do the recovery. I am tired of suffering. So, in talking, I looked up some of the best healthcare professionals that I could, and this was the best myomectomy surgeon out there. And they told me that they wouldn't even recommend a myomectomy in my case. I had over 100 fibroids, ranging from small to big. I had a pedunculated fibroid, which means it sits on a stem that was about the same size of my uterus, if not bigger. I would get full easily. I wouldn't eat. I was not gaining weight. I was so small. That's what this F word did to me. So I researched it and they said, Mrs. Holly, I don't even recommend a myomectomy. Even if I did a myomectomy, I wouldn't get all of the fibroids. And so I made the decision that day to get a hysterectomy. And that was a partial hysterectomy. It wasn't a full hysterectomy. And what that means is you keep your ovaries and your cervix and you don't go into menopause early. And I want to be so careful and so honest here because I know there's a woman listening who is at this crossroad and who is facing a decision on what to do, and you're terrified. And here's what I'll say. For me, this was not a loss. This partial hysterectomy was not a loss because I had tried everything. I had my kids, and this wasn't a doctor rushing me. Oh, I had the best, most amazing doctor. It was me fully informed over more than a decade into this journey, suffering from more than a decade, choosing me. I chose me. I chose to get my life back. And that's the difference. A hysterectomy that you're pushed into, or a hysterectomy you choose from a place of information and peace. Those are two completely different experiences. And I chose peace. Now I don't have to worry about an alarm. I don't have to worry about going into menopause. I don't have to worry about, bleeding all over the place, the cramps, the migraines. And I know we talked about this earlier on. That was a weight that I carried for so long and it hurt. It was so painful. And just to strip that weight, I feel so much free. And I carried it for over 13 years and I'm not carrying it anymore. The sacrifices I made for my kids, they're not in vain. But now I choose me. I choose me. And I feel so much better. I can keep the weight that I gained. I don't have to worry about being tired, fatigue. I still got to get my iron and my ferritin up. So I just had a hysterectomy um, back in February. So this is my first time actually really talking about this in depth. Um, and this is a woman talking to you from being in bed rest in the ER. I'm so much better. I'm so much better. And this is what living life unrestricted looks like. Here's your assignment this July. It's three things. One, if you are anemic and nobody has ever investigated why, if you are setting alarms to also manage your bleeding, and your period, if you're planning your life around your cycle, which I was, I'd be like, oh, we can't go on vacation at time I'm on my period. Let's schedule it the next week. That is not a personality trait, sis. It is a symptom. Make the appointment, say the fibroids out loud in the office, get checked out, and let them know I need you to investigate either the root cause or what can I do to manage this and address it. Number two, break the silence in your family. Fibroids run through our bloodlines, but the bloodlines that can be broken. That bloodline curse can be broken, and so can the silence around them. You're saying that's just how my body is. No, it's waiting. Your body is waiting for a diagnosis. What you're going through is not normal. And three, I want you to come back. I'm going to bring on a guest later on in the season to talk about fibroids, resources, what you can do. Um, they're going to share their stories and not just answer questions or, see a different view. They're going to show you and just really talk about candidly with no restrictions what fibroids have done to them, for them, and how they address them. If you have any questions, send them to the Sheila D @gmail.com. Or you can send me a direct message and you can be anonymous. Whatever works for you, it's fine. But we'll be answering questions and I'll be answering questions about fibroids, my journey, if you want to know. Nothing is too small, nothing's TMI. We are talking about things with no restrictions. I've been to the ER and in the ER over this. So there's nothing I'm embarrassed about. People have seen me, doctors have seen me, and nurses have seen me give birth. So I'm not really embarrassed about much. But you've been listening and you've been with me, Sheila D, at She Unrestricted. And I want you to carry less, feel more, and live life with no restrictions. Until next time, I'll see you. Love you. Bye.